every successful person got there by going through tough times. Success is a hard-ass teacher who likes to knock you around along that journey. You know, it takes real guts to not give up and keep going. We'll hear stories about failures and how these leaders flip the script to create success. I'm John Schultz. Join me and let's discover how success is never really overnight. Welcome back to the John Schultz podcast. I'm so glad I can say welcome back, and I keep getting these unbelievable guests. But there's only one question I want to ask to this guest to start off, and it's, how you doing?
How you doing?
So the reason why I'm asking it that way is we got the founder of How You Doing here, and it's an unbelievable pizza empire almost now as it's growing into multiple stores. It was created during the pandemic. He made the use of a pizza oven you got from Kickstarter. And the story is just amazing. And he also has an amazing story before that, which we're going to touch on. And he's on his way with this terrific company. Co-created it with his beautiful, unbelievably nice wife, Gabby, in Boca Raton. And we're going to get into it. But before we do, I want to say hello. And how are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
I love it more than you. Hearing these stories gets me excited. I usually like to go out jogging or running after my podcast because I'm so excited about the people that have come on and their stories. So I want to start with way back. Where did you grow up? How would you describe yourself as a young Garrett?
So I grew up on Long Island, in Jericho, North Shore of Long Island. Definitely a wild young man for sure. as a younger kid, it was my stories from my younger days are definitely quite interesting. Some of those I'm happy my now wife has looked past as I've gotten older and have formed myself into more of a real man at this point and father, but some wild times as a younger man.
All right. So since you really, you sort of alluded to where you were, but so then how would your parents describe you? So we can get a little bit more about you.
It really depends how graphic I can get on the podcast here. As a young kid, a real royal pain in the ass. But now where I'm at in my life now, I think they're shocked, and proud. All that big mixed feelings of the, of like that Jewish family coming from Long Island to see their son as like a real, just not such a great kid, turning himself into a real full-blown entrepreneur.
So then is there a specific memory that, I would say had the lasting impact that in this career path you're on? Like, is there something that like turned on a switch?
Yeah, well, like when I first graduated from college and I wasn't working and I was just kind of sitting around, hanging out, doing nothing. Like the biggest event for me at the time was like, what am I going to do for lunch? One of my, my good buddies, old business partner, pretty much grabbed me by the throat and was like, he looked me in the face. He's like, do you want to be a loser for the rest of your life? And I was like, no, not at all. I don't. And that was like one of like the moments that's like really been burned into my brain where I was like, do I want to be a 35, 40-year-old guy who's like biggest thing that he thinks about all day is like, where am I going to get lunch? Or do I want to be an ass kicker? And I was like, no, I want to be an ass kicker. Like I want to win, and that was like one of the moments that really jump started me to go from like what was like a boy to like a man. That was one of the ones that really like struck a chord.
What a good friend. That's amazing. Hopefully you're still friends with that person today. It's what is so unique about all the stories I hear is it always was someone else pushing you. We call them mentors, and that can have a big definition for different parts of your life and actually what a mentor actually is, but it's almost like guardian angels, right? They're around us and we don't know unless we're open to listening to them without taking the criticism the wrong way, right? And if someone came up to me when I was young and said, do you want to be a loser? I don't, it's either you're going one way or the other, right? You're either going to be depressed about yourself and continue on, or you're going to change. And you did, which is great. So, all right. So that helped you. You went to college. What was your first job now that you're not going to be a loser in the world that you started?
Sure. So I got myself into the logistics business, which I was there for about 10 years. I started off, very low on the totem pole. Was just a regular old salesman, and worked hard, long, hard hours, 6-7 days a week, 10, 14 hours a day.
Where was this located?
So this was in Boca, right here in Boca on Spanish River, and I was not the best salesman in the beginning. I wasn't confident in the product that I was selling, and it was that like cliche, like if you put in the 10,000 hours and you do that over and over and over again, you really can master a craft. So I got to the office before everybody. I stayed after everybody had left. And after about 3-4 years of like really hearing the no, trying to sell people, one day it finally just clicked for me. And I was like, aha, I had that like epiphany moment. And that's when like the light bulb flashed for me. And I was like, okay, I can do this. And I kept working at it, and I made my way up the ranks from just a regular salesperson to one of the executives in the company.
So let's go back before you go there, because I think what you just said, two things I want to harp on for all the younger people listening to this. First of all, you said if you didn't believe in the product at the beginning, it was hard to do, okay? So what got you to actually believe in it? And number two, epiphany can mean a lot of things. Like, what was the epiphany so that people can understand how to think, and it took you 3 years for both of those things and you're still at the company, right? So
yeah, for sure. Like I don't fancy myself ever as a quitter, so like for me, I was just going to keep going and going and going and going until I was able to figure it out, so like the company started off just doing simple retail car shipping cars for Betty Joe one time from point A to point B. And as the company grew and the company evolved, it started to focus more on like B2B style car shipping, which was more like car dealerships and auction houses and big enterprise style transportation moves. And once I started to get away from the mentality of like, I'm doing all this work to catch one fish, which I may never see again, versus like working my butt off to get this enterprise account that's going to do hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in transactions. That's when I was like, okay, now I could finally really believe in what it is that I'm selling. So my passion.
I think too, it's like you wanted a relationship. Like this one-off thing didn't feel good, right? You were starting over the next day. You felt like you never would, be able to nurture that. And I think in any business, that's what usually drives sales and growth, right?
100%. So like being able to forge that relationship, just like you're saying, with the people that I was doing business with, where it was like, it wasn't just like a one-time touch. It was like, this was like a thing that like every week you had numerous conversations with. And it was like these people that like you would speak to 15, 20, 30, 40 times a week, back and forth. And it was like, yeah, it was business, but it was also that relationship banter. It's like you were forging that relationship together. And when we started to go down that path is really when I was like, okay, I really can understand and believe in what I'm selling. And that was like when I landed Chevron as one of my big clients for car shipping. That's when I was like, whoa, okay, like this you can take from a job and you can turn this into a career. Like there was guys that were like, this was all commission, no salary, no nothing, salespeople that were like, I don't want to say like the dredges of the world, but these were like not professional people, but these guys were making $150,000 a year doing car shipping. And I was like, this is insane. I was like, I know friends that are like doctors that went to medical school with millions of dollars in debt, who are coming out and they're like they're barely making that. And I see this guy to the left or this guy to the right of me who's sitting in this cubicle who's showing up to work in flip-flops and he's making $150,000 a year. I'm like, whoa, like this is crazy. So when I landed that Chevron account and like the transaction numbers like shot through the roof, I was like, okay, if we can get Chevron, we can get somebody else. And then it just, the snowball effect, like that momentum of like, I can do it, pushed forward. And that's when I was like.
And you were there early. How many times were you did you almost walk out the door, right? When you didn't. But
you do. I remember like seeing, watching one of those movies where it's like, I don't remember, it was like Wolf of Wall Street or whatever it was back in the day, where it's like, one of the guys is like, getting himself psyched up. Where like I'm sitting in the car before I go into work, and I'm getting myself all jacked up, knowing that I'm probably going to hear no 400 times, but if I can hear yes 3 or 4 times, then it's been a good day, And that was like, it's getting kicked so many times where like you got to be able to overcome that like no to get the yes, and that was like the high that I.
And that's not just in sales either. That's in everything, and we're going to get to that, right? That's in anything you're part of. It could be no from someone internally, right? That when you're first starting out at a company, you got to navigate the corporate structure and learn how to get yourself through that, as well as if you're on the revenue generating side of any business. All right, so 3 years happened. You started moving up. Where were you in the 6th year? Like how did that evolve? Did you stay in sales?
No. So after six years, I started really diving into like the processes that the business was like that it needed. So like I started really focusing on onboarding, like proper onboarding for our new salespeople, because we started focusing more on we started targeting people from the car dealership world that didn't want to like live and die in the car dealership, but they had the relationships with, big car, big groups, so like onboarding those guys versus like onboarding a guy who shows up in like a tank top and sandals is like a big difference. It was a big, difference in processing for us, right? It's like bringing on true professionals, and then we started focusing on customer service, like the experience that we wanted our customers to feel and how we wanted to pick and choose, vendors that we chose to do business with. So I started helping to create the vetting process of like our carrier relationship process. So like that took some time to build that process, and like navigate it. And I was still pretty young in my career, so don't get me wrong. I was making mistakes, not left and right, but I was making mistakes. And the guys that were like, like C-suite executives, who really helped show me the way in how to build that like process and get your Six Sigma and get all of those things like really dialed in for the business. Obviously really helped translate into the business I'm in now, but that was really part of like the early stage of my career into 6, into 7. And as I got towards the tail end of my career, at my company, I was focusing on getting the technology aspect side of it off the ground. So it was really doing a lot more of like the beta testing and trying to find like where our systems would crash and continuously coming up with like new innovations for our technology platform from a customer service standpoint and like a quality assurance program for our company at that time.
I love that. It's like, and I'm sure there was challenges, from like loving the product to going out and selling belief, because I don't even think you're selling a product, you're selling belief and trust in what you guys can deliver as a service, to now having to get into all aspects of the minutia. What were some of the challenges for you in that process?
I am, my brain, my passion was more for like the customer service, the touch, to be a part of that process where like someone either had a terrible experience and how do we overcome that and fix that problem for them, rather than like sitting in a room watching coders type in code where you're just
Right.
like, this is terrible. Like this, like I understand what you're doing, but like for me to sit in a dark room while you sit and type in code, like this to me is not where like I'm going to excel for you. I'm better off watching at a much higher level view of my troops down below go through the process of customer service and relationship experience and see how I could help you implement some of that into the tech. That
Right,
was
because
really
it's not your character traits. And listen, what's funny is how we evolve into what we should be, even without even knowing it, right? And we're going to talk about that because here you are, 10 years, built this thing up. It was pretty big and large when you left. Pandemic hits, right? Gave everyone a loop. I don't know how much your business was hurt, the logistics business, but we're all sitting home now thinking like, what can we do to add value? So how you doing, which I love the name, by the way. I just want to keep saying it, but I can't because then no one will listen to the podcast. But how you doing take off from day one, knowing that you had this great thing? I almost feel like you're on the cusp. Logistics is everything, right? So like, talk about that part of it.
So it was a wild transition. So like just to take a step back, like COVID hurt my old business like pretty badly, right? Because like everybody was worried about cash, like how many companies are going out of business, what's happening here, what's happening there. So like my old business, when you talk about the logistics, because we focused on the brokerage side, right? So like we would do a transaction, and when we were doing it with the big car dealerships, they had net 30 terms, but they wouldn't pay for net 90, net 120. Like it was wild. But the guys that were doing the freight transportation, our terms were net 3. And if we didn't pay in net 3, they would go after your bond. And if you had enough people go after your bond, you went out of business. So like managing the cash flow of that was very, very challenging. So when I got, during COVID, when COVID was there and I had my kids and I was trying to keep everybody occupied, my pizza mentor who convinced me to buy the portable pizza oven, told me, he goes, look, if you're going to be stuck home during COVID, you should start a sourdough starter. So I was like, oh, okay, let's give it a shot. So I started the sourdough starter and I tried the pizza for the first time that I made. I was like, this is incredible. I said, this is like, I've never tasted anything like this, texturally, flavor. I was like, this is really, it's unbelievable. So I started making, just simple cheese pizzas, marinara pizzas, and I was giving them away to friends and neighbors. Like you came up.
And are you like a food guy? Like what the hell? Like
I love food, but I was never like in the food and hospitality world. It was just something that like I enjoyed doing. So like I would say like, all right, cool, I'll make this pizza. You come with a cookie sheet. I don't have any boxes at the time. And I was like, I'll throw it over the fence to you. You catch it like you're an outfielder catching a baseball. And people started picking up this pizza from my house. And they were like, this is incredible. Some of the best pizza I've ever had. And my wife was like, we should sell it. And I was like, it's like, I'm super busy with my job. I was like, we're trying to keep this company alive right now. Like the last thing I have time-wise is to start like making pizza and selling it. And she was like, no, let's try it. So long story short, 20 martinis later collectively, I was like, we need to come up with a good name. And she's like, how you doing? And I was like, I love it. I was like, that's incredible.
Dude, your wife's amazing. She should be up. We got to bring her on.
You should. There's things that I know that I'm really good at, and trust me, there's things that I know that I'm terrible at. And I feel like that like is a good attribute in an entrepreneur. But I said, all right, fine. We got a good name. Let's try it. So the first week, we posted a menu on Instagram on Wednesday for pizza pickups on Fridays. And we allowed people to pre-order, prepay using Calendly, where you can order 3 pizzas for every 15 minutes. So the first week we sold 25 pizzas, and the next week 35 pizzas, and 45 pizzas, and so on and so on. And we were selling out within minutes, literally within minutes. So I was like, all right, you know what? Let's try to do it again on a second night. So we started posting a menu on Mondays for pizzas on Wednesdays. And it got to the point that we were selling 150, 200 pizzas out of my backyard. And I was like, this is great. This is the craziest thing ever. So that went on for about 2 years. And at that point I was like, Gab, I was like, I think we really have something here. People keep coming back.
First of all, stop for that. You did that for 2 years.
I did it for 2 years.
And what was the top amount of pizzas at any one week of that end?
So we did almost 350 pizzas 1 week out of the backyard. It was we opened on Christmas Day. So I was in the back. I had four. We went from one pizza oven to 2 to 3 to 4. So I was walking out with 4 pizza peels, kicking my sliding door open to get the sliding door open.
And this isn't a development in Florida. This is not a retail establishment.
No, this is definitely not a retail establishment. And trust me, I had every person that I could on the take for a pizza. Every security guard in the neighborhood, every HOA person. I had everybody coming to get their fair share of the pie, up until the end of the second year, where I got the cease and desist letter, where my neighborhood sued me for making pizzas out of my backyard, because they're like, you can't run a business like this out of your backyard. And I was like, this is bullshit. I was like, the woman to my left is selling beads to mask chains out of her garage. The person to the left on this side over here is running a gym out of her garage. All the while I'm making pizzas and I'm just trying to make people happy. So
dude, this is so classic entrepreneur. Everyone should just take this and realize anything can happen. And you get the cease and desist order, but at the same time, what's going on with logistics?
So at that point in time, I'm phasing my way out, where I gave my business partners notice at this point, plenty of notice, because I was now getting ready to get into the craziest business with the highest failure rate ever and opening up a brick and mortar restaurant. So I didn't want to stop doing the pizza out of the house, because we were getting close to getting the brick and mortar store open. So I was 2-3 months before the brick and mortar is going to open, I'm not going to stop doing this out of my house. So I had to find a place where I could continue to sell pizza. So I was finding any brewery, any wine bar, any place that had liquor but didn't have food. So I found a brewery, which ironically is right behind my first brick and mortar store, called Prosperity Brewers, and I was selling pizza out of their parking lot for 2 times a week, just to keep the name.
Well, you had to keep the flow. I mean, you were nervous.
We couldn't abort at this point. We were so deep, so far down the rabbit hole. And it was crazy timing, because I was now having my 3rd kid, and we needed a bigger house, and was moving within my neighborhood. And the people from my subdivision, they were stopping the sale of my house, because I had an open lawsuit with them over the sale of the pizza, where it was you know what, screw it. I'm just going to cut these guys a check. And I took the cease and desist letter and I blew it up, and it hangs on the wall in the restaurant right now. That's my homage of my.
Oh, I love that. Think about this though. Think about this. Imagine going to your partner, wife, whoever, who wasn't involved in the idea, after spending 10 years building this logistics company with 3 kids, and saying, you know what, I think I got to start this pizza place. First of all, you had that support because you're together, which I think is beautiful. It just shows the power of partnership. It's like the mentor thing. She was your mentor through this whole process, and you're hers, right, to do this.
100%.
So you open this store. You're not even a pizza guy. Yes, these things only last 3-4 years. Most of these new concept stores, right? I mean, if you look at business as a whole, that most of them don't last past 5 years.
Yep.
So you open it up, you think it's going to be good. you had your proof of concept from your house, which is hilarious. What happened when you first opened? How did it flow?
So I built this beautiful store, my wife and I, and I'm like, great, now we need staff. I was like, where are we gonna find people to come and work? So I'm reaching out to a couple of buddies of mine who are like in a different world of the hospitality space, and I'm like, guys, I've got this great product. Help me find some people to come and work in this goddamn company. So they're like, we know a friend who owns a pizza shop. They're going out of business. So they're like, let's see. And I'm like, well, why are they going out of business? Like, they're having trouble with employees and staffing. So I'm like, all right, we're going to have to figure something out. So I get a phone call, a random phone call. And if I don't know the number, I typically don't answer. But for some odd reason, I answered the phone. And it was the mother of the husband and the wife owned this pizza place, a Mellow Mushroom on Atlantic Avenue. And she calls and she goes, hey, look, I hear you're opening a pizza place. We're closing a pizza place. Come to our store. Take whatever gear you want. It's going in the dumpster if you don't take it. So I was like, okay. So me and my general contractor, we drove over, and I'm loading up his pickup truck and my car with anything and everything I can get my hands on at this point. And I hear off to the side, this person goes, I can't believe after 14 years I'm leaving. And like my ears perked up. And like in my brain, I'm like, 14 years? No, nowadays nobody stays at a company for 14 years, So I'm like, either he's the most loyal
100%.
I'm like,
it's very rare.
Very rare. So it's like, he's the most loyal person in the world, which, perfect. I love that. I'll take that any day of the week. Or I said, he's the best employee. Either one, you're coming with me. So I walk over to this guy and I basically grab him by the neck. And I'm like, you're coming with me. You got to come see this store. You got to try this food. And he's like, Garrett, I just worked for 14 years, 6-7 days a week. COVID, we got our asses kicked. I was here day in, day out, nonstop. He's like, I'm going on vacation for like a year. And I said, Dustin, just come to my store one time, try the food, see it. And he's like, all right, fine. So the next day he comes, he sees the store and he tries the pizza. And he's like, he's been doing pizza for 25 years. So he's like, he tastes the food. He's like, I've never tasted anything like this before in my entire life. And he's like, all right, fine. I'm going to give it a chance with you. So I tried to translate what I was doing in my house into the restaurant. And I'm like, I designed the store. The feng shui is good. Everything's good. And he walks in, he goes, what the fuck did you do in here, Garrett? He goes, this doesn't work. This won't work. This won't work. So we're really...
Dude, I love that you built something. You had no employees. You have no freaking idea what you're doing, but you just knew that you had a product that everyone wanted to share.
That's it. So the first day, we're not even open for business. I'm rearranging the entire store. And I'm like, what is happening here? So the first day we open for business, and like people want to come and show love and support and be a part of what we built. The line is around the block. It's around when I tell you it's around the block, it's around the block. So we've staffed the restaurant, with some good bodies, and we pretty much sell out of like almost all of our dough within the first like 2 hours. And I'm like, okay, we're good. Let's break down our stations. And all of a sudden the ticket machine starts printing. And I'm like, where are these orders coming from? And I didn't and it's nobody's fault other than mine. We set up this online ordering platform and I didn't really understand how to truly track it. So I had the staff open and close their stations 2 or 3 times. And I was like, these great employees are going to quit on day one because the restaurant world's a hard world, man. It's
hard. It's hard.
This is not easy stuff, So
no.
For them to get their ass kicked in the trenches for a few hours, close the station, reopen it, close it, reopen it. I was like, these guys are going to quit. But long story short, they stuck with me, and the first year was not, I don't want to say hard, but it was hard. It was a big transition in lifestyle for me, going from working a lot, but I had the opportunity to work from home a lot of hours at my old company, to being all right, I'm going to live and die in this restaurant and build this brand, to get it moving, So it was 13, 14 hours a day, 6, 7 days a week. Like it was a
What
lot.
was the hardest lesson you learned?
What was the hardest lesson I learned?
Yeah, because that's a big transition year, right? I mean,
It was to get ahead and stay ahead. Like that was like to get ahead and stay ahead. Like to not be like constantly like starting and prepping every single thing every single day. Like find a way to get 3, 4 days ahead so that the following day you don't have to start the whole process over and over and over
you would
again.
think your logistics background would be like a good training for that, right? Because logistics is all getting ahead.
It is.
Obviously you need to know the business, but
This was different. This was different though because it was food. So like we were like, how do we get ahead but not get so far ahead that we're throwing food away? And how do we get ahead so that like we have enough of everything we need, but we find a way to repurpose everything that we're doing so that we don't have any waste.
got
So
it.
like that was part of the learning experience of like
So,
where
all right, so you're a year in, right? Got a nice year under your belt. How were sales? Good sales. I mean, did it keep up the pace that you thought from the house, the backyard?
It kept up. It kept up pace. Some of it was a little bit challenging, and the reason why it was a little bit challenging was like some of the combinations of food that we were selling were so unique and so different that like some of it was like a learning experience. Like we had to teach people like some of the combinations of items that we were putting on food, and that took time. And like getting people to come in, try this food once to be like, okay, your cheese pizza is delicious. Let's now try a pistachio pizza. Let's try this pizza that's got a cheese on it. We have no idea what it is. We can't even pronounce. And then like the next hardest part was we were selling food and we still are at a real premium. Like people say pizza's recession-proof food, but like for us, we sell a 16-inch pizza that feeds 2 people, whereas like Sal's or Bill's or Tony's Pizza sells a 16-inch pizza that feeds 4, for less money. So we really had to get people to understand why we were justifying the price that we needed to sell this food, but also to get them to understand that the ingredients that we were putting on this food and the dough that you were consuming was so incredibly different than what it was that we were like you would get at the next pizza place down the road. And that was one of the hardest hurdles.
I just still can't believe Garett Goodman created some dough. Like, think about how long pizza's been around, and like your dough is this dough. It's like it's shocking to me.
Well, you know what it is, and it's so crazy because you always hear that like, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And like when I was getting this thing started, it legitimately wasn't work. It was fun. It was like just for for passion. So like you don't understand, John, like when I was making dough, when I first started making dough out of the house, like it was a mess. It was a train wreck. There was flour in all the walls. You can't even comprehend the mess. And some days it was great, and some days it was terrible, and some days it was amazing, and some days it was horrible. And it was up and down and up and down and up and down. And like where it got to the point where like we were getting ready to open the store, and like the temperature changed and the humidity changed, and the dough that we were using out of our house originally then didn't translate to the pizza oven that we were using in our store like 3-4 weeks before we were getting to open. So we had to pivot 3 weeks before the store opened and reevaluate every aspect of the dough making process. So I'm like shitting my pants 3 weeks before. I'm like, we're gonna open, and I have a dough that I can't sell. So now it's like 12 hours a day, reading every single bit of sourdough knowledge that I could to try to figure out like what's causing this problem. It's like it was this some of those.
It's like having a tech problem, like when we can't get on a Zoom and we die to figure out. And it's like so you had to figure it out.
We were in big time. We were in legit big time scramble mode at this time. And again, when we finally got it under control, the doors opened and like we got momentum and we're moving. Like so many, it was me being a little bit stubborn and spiteful. Where like Palm Beach Post or one of these people comes out and they're like, "Do you want to do an interview?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course." They're like, "Well, it's going to be $495 for a post this big." I'm like, "I'm paying you. Like, you want to do an interview with me? You want to do this? Like, you can do that." I'm like, and it literally like. We didn't advertise. We still don't advertise. It's all 100%.
So what? All right, you didn't advertise, but when did Dave Portnoy show up?
So he showed up literally pretty much almost 1 year ago to the day today. So
Really?
Oh yeah. So he shows up and he gives us a great score, and like we like wanted to be prepared, but we were like not prepared for the influx of business that would come with it. And literally the next day, the doors exploded. Like they exploded.
So his impact is that big. It could go the other way. I mean, were you nervous?
It was monumental, and it was just crazy because like we were filming a TV show for CBS News, and like the store was closed from 9 a.m. in the morning till about 3 or 4 p.m. I was like, we're closed. We're filming this TV show, and like we were at like 1 o'clock. I was like by myself in the store. I'm cleaning up. There's bottles of wine everywhere. It's like a party rager just happened in there. And the phone rings, and it's Billy like wants a cheese pizza, and I'm like, you know what, whatever. I'm making a pizza or two for like my neighbors down the way over here in the shopping center. They were like, Can I get 3 or 4 pizzas? I'm like, yeah, fine, whatever. So the phone rings and I answer it, and I'm like, what's one more cheese pie? So like I'm now like cleaning up, scrambling, and all of a sudden the door opens, and who is it? And it's Dave. And I'm like, I look at him, I was like, really? Out of all days, it has to be. And he's like, why? And I'm like, look around, bro. I said, like, the store's not open for business. He's like, your hours say you are. I said, no, we typically are, but like right now we're not. We were just filming a TV show. So like when I say he caught me with my pants down, he caught me.
Dude, that's so good. It makes the story so much better. So what was your rank?
So he gave us a 7.8. He said it's as good as an 8.1. Obviously, I wish he would have given us the 8.1, but for our style of pizza, he's never given our style as high of a score as he ever has, which is phenomenal. But you know what the crazy thing is? Like, the people that saw the video and decided I'm going to give it a try, like they came in and decided that like we're going to try the food, and they were like, they underscored you. He's like, so like the score was good and it was great, but like really what mattered was people came in, tried the food themselves, and said, wow, this is better than what he.
Now, listen, if he's good, if you get a good score, that's better marketing than any of those other people that came to. All right, so all things are going. I love how like you're learning on the fly. You're just showing that you got to take chances, risks. You can't know everything before you start. You got to fail. You got to be not scared to fail, and you'll figure it out. So now what do you have? 3 stores? Like, where are you in your evolution?
It's wild. So we just opened our second store last week. Our third store is getting ready to open in a couple months. We just signed another lease for another store in Coral Springs just yesterday, and now we're getting ready to do a big deal with a store in Vegas.
So my God! So here you go,
moving it along.
14 years later, from not knowing what direction you were going to be in, learning all this valuable stuff. Like, and this is what I try to tell people: like, just remember every day's worth something. And I think you're proving this, right?
Yeah.
First, you didn't know how to believe in a product. And here you are believing in something that probably is the hardest thing to enter. I mean, I don't know of a harder food group to enter where you actually can get traction and grow like you're growing. Then it's like, I don't really understand the back office stuff, but I'm gonna learn and do that with your logistics company, to this whole backyard, unbelievable. It should be like a Jerry Seinfeld episode. Like, I wish they'd retape shows so that,
Sure.
and here you are today. And I mean, it's just amazing. So where do you see this going for yourself?
It's wild, because like I just held a meeting with we did an all hands on deck meeting with the whole crew, and we went through like the pivot from one store to two, and two to three, and three to four, and so on and so on. And it was like the expectation of my expectation. And I finished this speech, and I'm in like happy tears right now. I'm like, if you work hard, dreams really do come true. Like, look at me. You're part of my original. Like, I'm telling you, I get like the chills on my arms.
Dude, I love that. I'm like feeling it through the screen.
I'm serious. Like, I'm crying. I'm bawling in tears. Like wholeheartedly to these people. And now all of them are crying. They're all crying. They're like it really can happen. Like, it really is possible, and we're a part of it at the ground floor. So
good.
It was wild. So like, look, I would like to get 30 stores, 40 stores, something like that is the number. There's a few concepts, like small spin-offs to what I want to do with How You Doing. I would love to get a sandwich shop going, small, super high-end, super boutique. It goes hand in hand with the stuff that we're currently doing right now, sourdough bread, baking it in-house, the same meats, the same cheeses. It's like, again, it comes back to like, how do we cross-utilize all of the products, go tip to tail, make it scratch made. Like, that's my big path forward for the store, and to push it as long and as hard as we can until, God willing, my kids want to take it over, or, if one day it happens where, a big venture capital firm comes in, or like, like some, like Dunkin', like a McDonald's or somebody comes in, and says, hey,
listen, your Instagram, your marketing's clever. How you doing? I mean, who wouldn't want to keep saying? I told you before, it's the greatest name. The logo you created for it, you and your wife, is just fantastic. I'm just can't believe it. I'm so happy for you. And what's going to be great now, all the failure, all the not knowing, all the confidence you built by trying things, from bringing that one first employee over, right, when you didn't even know how you're going to open, to now having to scale. That's a whole, like, scale. When you scale businesses, it's a whole different thing. But
I'm a glorified Uber driver right now, trying to figure out how to move products properly.
But I think I know you're going to get it done, because you're going to get the right people involved with you who need to be involved with you. You're not going to quit, and you love it. It's that like, you love it enough not to quit. So that's what's so good.
It's the thing that keeps me up at night, and it's the thing that wakes me up really early in the morning. Like, it's
that's a bumper sticker.
Yeah,
I love that.
I haven't felt this burning desire for, like, willingness to succeed in a very long time, where like there's literally nothing that I won't do for this company. And like, you're gonna laugh. So like, we've been running that dough mixer so hard, so consistent, that the dough mixer at our store just broke, and I'm waiting. I got to wait for a new one to come. That we got to revert back to doing it old school. We're going to do it by hand. I got to go back to making dough for 2 stores by hand. So just like the cycle.
Dude, do a behind the scenes video on that and just use it. Like this is what you do. It's great
to go back and get back into doing it by hand. I'm so excited. Like, everyone's like, this is a problem. And I'm like, no, this is incredible. Like, I can't wait to get back in there and get my arms dirty with it again. All
right. So how you doing? You got websites. How do people find you? Instagram? Just how can we?
Our Instagram is really the best way to, like, stay current with us. Like, we're really on it. So just check us out at How You Doin, HOWYADOUGHN. That's the best way to find us and stay current on all the.
And we'll put it in the show link so people can see it.
For sure.
Well, thank you so much. I feel like I'm taking too much time away from your creation, but people need to hear this story, because when you get goosebumps yourself telling your own story, that's how you want to live your life. And I'm so happy you actually can get that feeling.
It's crazy. I sent a picture to Gabby the other day. It's like there's like a few songs that I put on in my car on my way to work, and literally I can't. It's odd. Like I'm telling you, like I cry out of excitement sometimes on my way to work, where I'm like, I cannot wait to get in here and just like get the shit out of the day. Like that's like where I'm at. Like I'm really.
Well, thank you so much for being here, my friend.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it.
Hi, John Schultz here. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. Would really appreciate it if you would like, comment, subscribe, and share with your friends. Looking forward to being with you soon.